I know it took a little bit. We had a few technical difficulties, but I'm really excited to be here with everybody tonight. Scott and I are going to talk about, well, it's a challenge for anybody who is seeing a consultant or trying to make changes in their practice. So for everybody who's listening out there, you've come to see Scott. If you haven't come to see Scott, you need to go see Dr. Leune. And you're going to learn so many new things that you can do in your practice, changing systems, the way you do hygiene recall, and that list could go on and on and on. And I'm hoping even Dr. Leune will share some of those things with us. And so we have a strategy here as an HR company for helping the doctors that we work with try to overcome those people who we have just simply labeled blockers. At the end of this, we'll send you guys a blockers guide. It's very, very helpful. It kind of gives you some of the things that you can say to people, and I'm sure you'll see that there's some stuff in there that will help you guys. So with no further ado, I'm going to try and see if I can get my slides to start moving along, and we'll just move through. A little bit about me, Scott, just for everybody. I'm the founder of Cedar HR Solutions. Why that matters is because I created a company about 20 years ago that goes beyond just giving you an employee handbook and saying, good luck, see you later. We actually flip the model and we provide close-in HR support and problem solving, and it needs to be built on a good employee handbook. And the reason why that I'm telling you this is that we take about 12,000 calls from about 3,000 members. Those are offices that we're helping with HR. 12,000 calls a year, and a lot of them have to do with, I've got this thing I'm trying to accomplish with my employee, and she's blocking me, or he's blocking me, or they won't do what it is that I asked them to do. Can you help me get people to do what they need to do? So this presentation is a lot about that sort of stuff. I already told you what we do, so we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this slide. If you guys want to investigate and learn more, you'll get in touch. Okay.
Actually, I'm going to interrupt for just a second, Paul,
Yeah,
and,
sure.
and I appreciate you having me on. I've invited a bunch of my own people on this webinar as well, but
Yeah.
the way I found out about Paul a long time ago is I owned a bunch of practices, and I was struggling, growing and managing people, and the drama and, the HR conflicts that can happen. Whether they're employees complaining or patients or employees threatening a lawsuit or had to fire people or write people up. And I had just a tremendous amount of support from Paul's company. So the way I kind of look at Paul's company, and this is important for you to know because you need to understand why this webinar is so valuable to you because of who's teaching you. Paul is the expert in dentistry on HR. His company does two main things as far as I see it. Number one, it gets us completely compliant in the practice with a proper policy manual. It's not just about building a manual. It's about taking the practice and the CEO through the process of answering the questions. What policies do we want for this, for time off, for reviews, for things like that? That's a really big, important thing. It's something we all need to do. That's one thing, build the manual. But the second thing is that Paul has HR executives, very expensive people that I would not be able to afford as a practice owner, HR executives that are on call for dental practices to call them with any sort of HR questions or support. So Paul, you mentioned something, I did the math as like 50 HR calls a day of practices that are in HR crisis, or they have questions, or how do I write this person up? Or I've got someone that's not going to implement something. I've got someone pushing back. They're fighting. They're poisoning our team. I don't know what to do. That's like 50 of those a day. So, I don't know of anyone else in dentistry that probably handles that part at that volume like you do. So I really appreciate you walking us through your wisdom on what to do with employees who seem to block change, seem to be blocking our desire to lead the practice to kind of a new chapter. So thank you.
Scott, thanks, man. I mean, we've been working with you for a very, very long time. And you're right, when we first found each other, you had so many practices and you had a lot of HR going on. And there was always something going on in one practice or the other. And I think part of the challenge, if we just look at it, is as a manager, you don't often know what it is you can say or do. And oftentimes you're operating from frustration because you've been trying and you can't get people to come on board. you know it'll work, or you think it'll work, and you have somebody in front of you. We're going to talk about those somebodies, because I'm not labeling these people as bad. I mean, there's a 10% group of them out there that you just need to get out of the way. They're never going to change. They're not going to buy in. They're not going to do the things that you want them to do. And there's no reason for you to just keep pounding at that person trying to get them, and you got to get them out of the way. But as you'll see, as we talk here, the problem with the blockers is that they're very good at other things in your practice. So you don't just want to reach out and say, push them out of the way, or go around them, or whatever other strategy that you might be thinking about. You kind of have to hold on to them because they're good at it. But how do you get them to convert? And I'll just share one thing with me personally. And I think it kind of hits. I'm a no first, Scott. I'm almost always a no. If someone's like, let's go do this thing, the first thing in my head is no, but I have trained myself that that's not a good place for me to be. And it has really helped me. So I just want to kind of share, I'm not trying to label somebody as bad. So if we talk about who a blocker is, it's someone who's going to resist change. When they do that, they're dragging down morale. You come back as an owner, and you're all excited to implement a new system, and they're just drag down the morale, and they just create all these obstacles to you accomplishing what it is that you've just learned. And as I said, and is here on the screen, they're often valuable employees in other ways. And so, the main thing they do is they just stifle growth. They prevent you from innovating. They prevent you, and you'll hear me say this a few times, they prevent you from learning from your mistakes, because they want you to keep doing the same thing over and over again, and they don't want to explore new possibilities. And so we'll hear them resist in all kinds of ways. The impact of blockers on you is, the way it manifests is some blockers, many blockers, are known for escalating minor issues. Like I said, they're blocking innovation. They're going to stifle your growth. And they're really going to kind of mess with your progress as you go through. And, I think, Dr. Leune, you can attest to this. It just takes a while sometimes. You have to keep trying it. You have to keep tuning it. You have to keep fine tuning. You have to keep measuring it and working on it. And if someone just flat out is a no, you're never going to get to that stuff.
Yeah. I kind of look at this as the more mature I am as a leader, and the more kind of skills I've attained and wisdom I have, the more people I can pull through the phases of change and kind of unblock in a way, right? Yeah. So strategies really matter. It's not black and white. It's not like I tell someone to do something, they don't do it, therefore they're bad. No,
right.
There's a process we need to learn.
Yeah, and that process is, the more that you can communicate, the better it is. The more whys that you can give them, the more goals that you can set. And we're going to talk about that, because goal setting and data and measuring data is the way to get blockers on board, because it prevents them from being able to hide. But before I jump into that, I want to touch on these legal considerations, because we're at work and we're working with people who are resisting us. I just want to bring this to everybody's attention. It's very important to remember that employees have the right to voice certain types of complaints, and that they're protected by law. So benefits, working conditions, pay, all of those things are things that employees are allowed to talk about. Now, it may not appear that what you're trying to get them to do is directly related to this concern that I just expressed, but eventually in the middle of the mix are going to be comments and things that come up that are directly related to some of the protected activity in your workplace. And so you just need to be cognizant of that. Whenever the complaint involves any of the protected activities, and I just mentioned pay and benefits or the working conditions, and I'm going to give you an example. I'm pushing back. I'm just kind of expressing how, in its most simplest terms, I'm pushing back the hygiene schedule that you're trying to get me to follow. And instead of taking an hour and 5 minutes as you've given me, I feel I need an hour and 25 minutes. And the reason why I'm pushing back is because clinically, I don't think that I can do as good of a job as a hygienist. And therefore, this schedule and the thing that you've put together does not work for me. At that point, you have an employee who's brought a little bit of a concern there, whereby she's in a protected activity. So if you told me that was what's going on, and you told me that you'd been trying to get her on board and that you'd had that conversation 3 or 4 days ago, and if you told me, you know what, I've decided I can get a better hygienist, I have a better offer, which, by the way, I know it's not that easy to do right now. I have a better way. I just want to fire this person and get them out of the way. I would say to you, that's not a good idea, because she just participated in something with you a few days ago in discussing this, and we're going to have to spend more time getting her out of the way and documenting what's going on with this employee. So it's not always just a matter of you just push the person out of the way. So that's my cautionary tale. It's good for you to know, what those protected activities are and how that stuff unfolds. Scott, I put a few of these together because we did the big guide and we just put it out a few days ago. So your folks who are listening are going to get this guide in all of its glory and detail. And we kind of created some of these personas. I think everybody who's looking at the screen, if you're watching us right now, these are the personas of the folks on the other end that are trying to prevent you from making progress. The truth of the matter is that I think it's almost always a combination of some of these things that are in here. And the one that I wanted to dive into, Scott, is the resistant veteran. I'm not going to jump into all of these. If you look in the guide that we'll send you, you'll see that we kind of talk about how all of these people operate and think, and a few little strategies and conversations that you could have with them to get them to kind of move.
Yeah, and I see that resistant veteran. That could be that hygienist that's been around for a long time. It could be that office manager that worked for the seller that sold you the practice, and they're still in here. I think we could all think of actually a resistant veteran. That's quite a common one. At least I see.
And they're really powerful, even though they may not even have a manager's title or anything. Mm-hmm. They've got all the training in their hand. They probably trained several of the people or even hired several of the people that work for you. And they really do hold some power, and rightfully so. They're the veteran. They've been there for a long time. They really are an asset in a lot of different ways. And so one of the things that I'll jump to on this veteran thing to kind of talk about that resistant person is that it's important to acknowledge their experience and to clearly communicate the need for change to them. It's just super important. You can't just come in and say, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. They're going to be a lot like I was when I was 4 years old, and you start to go, but why? But why? Why do I have to do this? There's going to be a certain amount of that, and you being able to communicate both your short and your long-term goals to this person is one of the first methods for getting them on board. And
I've also noticed, Paul, is like some of us practice owners just kind of get authoritative sometimes. And sometimes that resistant veteran actually says nothing to us. Yep. They're quietly there, and they're going to let their resistance be known after that moment to the team sometimes before us, right?
Yeah. It's the kind of the muttering under the breath. They take it's unfortunate, Scott, but a lot of culture out there in workplaces is negative, where people are just come through the door, and I got to be careful with the use of the word gossip, but they're gossiping. They're always looking for the negative. They are a critical thinker, and in some ways, that's an absolutely wonderful thing to have on your team, because they use that critical thinking to solve problems and to make changes, as long as they're the ones that came up with the idea. But they also apply critical thinking to everything, to the point of they're a no on everything, and they're not going to change to a yes unless they're almost forced to. And I see
a lot of these resistant veterans. Actually, the smart dentists that come to my seminars will actually bring the resistant veteran with them, because that environment, surrounded by other people saying yes and hearing it, it's a nice, healthy way to kind of inundate this veteran with new ways of thinking.
And imagine that they're a combo of the veteran and they're overwhelmed. You've literally been asking too much of them, and every time someone goes missing on the team, they have to fill in. And they have been filling in to the point of, we all know it. I mean, you've got office managers that have to drop back into their dental assistant job every day because you're shorthanded, and they're really, really overwhelmed. And so, you come back from a conference and you're excited and you've got these ideas. You're saying this is what we're going to do, but they did not get that same infection from going to see Dr. Leune. They didn't get that same kind of message. They don't have the same kind of energy that you do. So that is one really good way, which is take them into the program, take them into the conversation, and let them see and hear all of the testimony and all the good stuff that goes on in these meetings when you talk about them. So we put a little thing up here just as an example. We get this one all the time. You got a senior hygienist. So now we're not with your most powerful person, but we got a hygienist. She does not want to do callbacks. She does not want to get on board to a larger system whereby what you're basically being taught is that there's no reason for your hygiene schedule not to be completely full 2, 3, 4 months out. It is where dentistry is generated from. It is a 5-alarm fire drill when someone calls in and cancels. How can we get someone else in that chair? And you just have to go to this kind of mindset where things have to be changed. And, you ask the hygiene team to get on the phones and start calling people and reminding them and help out and see what we can do. And they say, it's not my job. That's not my job. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to clean teeth. I'm not a part of that. And then, I'll put myself in your shoes. I'm standing here with 5 or 6 other employees. I'm trying to do dentistry. Everybody else has their job. Somebody's got to jump in there and take this stuff on. And so this is where, we see a lot of resistance start to come in.
So you mentioned something interesting. You mentioned culture. And one thing that I think about in our culture, so the stronger the culture is, I would imagine the easier and more open we are to change. One cultural thing that this reminds me of is we always preach, we need to take care of the patient. We need to take care of the practice. Both have to be taken care of. If one isn't taken care of, it's not going to work. With a hygienist that's got an opening in their schedule, there's no patient to take care of. So now we got to take care of the practice. So things like that, some of those cultural moments that we repeat over and over again could give us a foundation to avoid some of these blocking moments. But I love what I'm reading on your slide right now. Please dive into that. Because we're going to have so many blocking moments no matter what our culture is, because in a way to admit we should change, we admit we were in a way wrong in the past, right? So naturally, we want to resist it because we're proud of what we've done. We don't want to subconsciously be saying we've been doing it wrong. We want to defend that we've been doing it right. So thank you for letting me interrupt you there.
No, it's okay. It's good. Well, I think we all can go into defensive mode. When someone says that this needs to change, that's probably the first thing we think of is why. It's the way I've always been doing it. So the one other thing that I want to put for culture for everybody who's listening out there, and this is a deeper dive that we won't go into tonight. The one thing that I can tell you is that if you do not set some goals for your practice and a vision for your practice for the next year, and if you do not sit down and kind of set your culture and how things should operate inside of your business, they will set the culture for you. And the problem with your employees setting the culture is 1 week or 1 month or one set of quarters, everything will be great. And then later on, it won't be great. And because you let the employees set the culture and drive that train, you have no way to get everybody back on track. So culture and using words like, innovation and, care and just responsibility and integrity, all of these things are strong ways to set your culture and kind of help your team move forward. So the strategy here is easy. Listen, empathize, redirect, require, and measure. It's very, very easy, Scott. So listen, we've talked about that. Listen to the person. Don't just say we're changing, you're wrong. Listen to their concerns and give them a moment where you're not waiting for them to shut up and stop talking so that you can talk, but actually listen to their concerns not so that you can shoot them down, but so that you can commiserate with them and you can work with them in a professional way back and forth to get them over their concerns, to share their concerns with them and find ways to empathize. So that's the next thing. Just kind of respect their experience. I use these words. I need you to help me. That's how I get someone who's resisting me. I sit them down and I say, this is the issue. This is what's going on right now and the impact you're having. And I really need you to help me. I know that you're not keen on this program that we're doing right now. And I feel like you're expressing it in the background and it's preventing us from making any progress in it whatsoever. And so I need you on my team for a little bit. What I'm begging you to do is spend the next 30 days doing it the way that I'm suggesting. Work with me and give me input and let's see what we can do. And let's see if we can get a different output. And that's the redirect. That's the focus towards positive outcomes and bringing them into some shared goal. And you could say, look, I know that we are off on our new patients right now. I know that we're not quite getting where we're supposed to be. And I know that I've said that we ought to be able to run 40 to 60 new patients through here, doing what it is that I'm suggesting we're doing. But right now, I think we would all take 20 because we're so far behind. So let's just set some goals and let's move forward. So that's the next step, Scott. This is where people can't get out of it, and neither can you as a leader. When you require and you make you create some measurable actions that align. So when you require people to measure something, so how many recalls did we make for hygiene? What did we do in situation XYZ in order to get to the goal? That's the first step. The next one is to measure that progress and then to meet about that progress briefly on a weekly basis to get started. So that's the secret sauce, guys. You can't escape from, we're going to talk on Thursday to see how we did on the hygiene recalls. And then they come in and say, well, I didn't make any because we were so busy. Well, that might be a useful piece of information. Maybe they were so busy that nobody could make recalls for the next few weeks. But in most instances, it's just going to show that you are serious about this and that we're going to have to talk about the data and we're going to have to talk about the reasons why whatever it is that we're trying to do isn't working.
Okay, so could I try it? Could we go back one slide and could you be
Sure.
a hygienist for me and block me, and can I try it? So let's do a really hard one. Let's say I want to do I'm the practice owner. I want to do assisted hygiene because we're booked out too far in hygiene. We need to be able to see more hygiene patients per day. And we can't find another hygienist to join us right now. So in the meantime, I want to do assisted hygiene. And maybe you don't want to because you've got concerns that it's going to be too hard or it's not going to be as good for the patient or whatnot. So I want to try this 5-step strategy right now.
Okay.
Right? So
I feel like I'm on the spot. I'm ready.
Okay. Well, you're going to be the hygienist. So I'm the one that might screw this up.
No, you're not going to screw it up. Dr. Leune, I just can't do it that way. I mean, I understand, and you've explained it to me, but it just doesn't work. And I want to be honest with you. I feel it's making me a little nervous. I think it's actually taking me longer to get things done using the system that you're asking me to use.
Okay. So let me make sure I get this correct. You're really worried about this taking longer. You feel like it's not going to work as well running 2 columns with your own assistant than the way we've been doing it with just 1 column. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I did it yesterday and everything took me even longer. It did, it did.
Yeah. And I would imagine. I'm sorry, you're breaking up, Paul. Could you repeat that?
I just said I tried it your way, and it took me longer yesterday. So we went through the whole thing yesterday, and I didn't get to see one of my patients because I was running in the new system. It's not working, and patients hate it.
I understand what you're saying. Yesterday, the first time trying it, it wasn't working. Just like if we tried to ride a bike and we fell off the first few times, it doesn't seem like we can ride that bike. And I understand you're worried about not being able to treat patients as well and that the day seems harder. I also know that we've got this problem right now where we have to see more patients per day. They're waiting too long. They can't get helped. And we haven't found another hygienist yet. And so what I want to do now, I've made a decision. I want us to go to assisted hygiene, but I want to do it for a couple months. And in that couple months, I want us to meet at the end of every day and try to learn what went well and what didn't go well. And by the end of those 2 months, we're going to see how many more patients were we able to treat. And we're going to have a meeting to talk about if we think this is a good long-term thing for us or not. That's what I've decided.
Well, I'll do it. I mean, I'll do it because, I don't have a choice, but I'll do it. I don't know how, I don't know what it, I don't know how this works well for me. I mean, I feel like I'm doing twice as much work as I was doing before. And I don't know why. I just don't know. I just don't have a lot of faith in this.
Yeah, I understand. You know what? I need you to help me and I need to help you. So I'm asking you to do this for the practice. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to make sure I meet with you every single day. I'm going to touch base with you to see if there's anything we can do better to make this work good for you. Because what I know is if it works, we see more patients, so they're treated better, our practice does better, and you do better financially. If we do it the old way, we still have this problem. So I'm going to ask you to do this for 2 months, and let's see if we can make it work. And I commit to you to meet every day to touch base with you to see if there's anything else we could do to make it easier.
Can I change out assistants? I don't like what's going on. I don't like her. It's part of the reason.
Oh, so we're keeping going, Paul. Okay. Oh, you would like to use a different assistant for this. Okay. So help me understand, because this is now a new issue. Help me understand what you don't like about this assistant.
You got it, Scott. That's perfect. I just wanted to relay to everybody that when someone gets into that negative thing, they're going to start the conversation over and they're going to pick the next thing. You should expect that to happen. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Leune, there's a reason why you're a consultant. You handled that very well. And it's not because this is news to you. You've had to do this before and teach other people to do it.
Yeah, well, I'm following your thing here. So I listened, I validated, so I repeated back to them. Then I went over, okay, well, why are we considering doing this? And then I didn't make them commit forever. I said, we're going to learn how to do it, and we're going to meet it after 2 months. So I'm not asking for a full commitment. I've made a decision. I'm the decision maker. I've made a decision that we're going to do it for 2 months with a lot of support, and then we're going to talk about it after that.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you took control, that you made that, you didn't say I'm the boss and you do what I say. You said, this is my decision and this is what we're doing, which is, pretty important.
Yeah.
I want to say this too. I jumped to the next slide, but I also want to interject something in here, Scott, since I'm HR and everything gets tied back to HR. I think one of the most frustrating things for us as experts out here is that you've been going through a process with someone like this and it's not going well. And what you haven't been doing is writing notes and documenting things. And so we get to the end of your process and you want to fire someone and get them out of the way. And they've not been performing well and not doing what you asked them to do all along. And you don't have a single note or anything in their file where you've talked to them. And the reason why that's important in a lot of ways is that ultimately having really good policies and having good documentation, it doesn't mean you have to sit down with them and issue a corrective action and have them sign it, go through all of that. But just putting your notes in writes the story of why you made your decision. And it pretty much disallows an attorney to come in from the outside and make up a new story for you. Now, they can make up a new story and make all sorts of allegations if they want to, but you have something to counter that. And trust me, the last thing that an attorney wants to see are good notes and documentation of how an employee hasn't been coming along. So
yeah, we're used to taking or doing clinical notes.
Yep.
And we spend time doing that. And so many of us just completely ignore having employee notes. So could these notes just be a kind of a communication log, a digital file where every time we have to address conflict or friction or some sort of issue, we're making a note of what was said and when that was said?
Yeah. Simply talk to Sally in the hallway. We talked about how she's been late several times and she told me what was going on and promised me she'd be on time. date in the file it goes. I mean, I provide software to all of our members for notes and uploading documents, and that's literally what it's for. It timestamps who made the note and puts it in there, and it's just like your medical notes. It's exactly the same. You can use them later because they were made at the time. And so, super important thing to do, and really helps me help you.
Okay.
So, you did the guidance in action here. I've got this screen. I had no idea that you were going to be that good at it. The guidance in action is exactly how you did it. Listen, empathize, redirect, require, and measure.
So can we do it again? But back to your example, I've got a hygienist who, when she has a cancellation or an opening in her schedule or his schedule, I want them to be making outbound phone calls in that time to try to fill other openings in the hygiene schedule, but they don't want to do it.
Do I get to be the hygienist again?
Well, yeah, I guess so. Or
Okay.
you want to switch it? I can be the hygienist.
No. I want to be the hygienist.
You want to be the hygienist? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I've told you, I would like all the hygienists, anytime you have an opening in your schedule, to spend that time calling overdue hygiene patients to fill future openings in the schedule.
Well, Dr. Leune, I don't really feel like that's my job. I mean, I went to school to learn how to be a hygienist. And, for the last however long I've been working for you and for the practices before, really not my job to make phone calls to people to try to fill our chairs here for the practice. My job is to clean teeth. And that's really where I want to be focused. I don't feel comfortable calling these people. I feel like we're harassing them. I just don't feel good about doing this.
Okay. And whose job do you think it should be to call patients about their hygiene appointments?
I don't know whose job it's supposed to be. I just know that it's not me. I would rather just be back here treating patients. If you could put patients in my chair, then I can speed up a little bit, but I don't think that this is my role.
And if you don't have a patient in your chair because the patient's sick or they canceled, what do you think you should be doing with that time?
I don't know.
Okay. So let me make sure I understand you correctly. I've asked you to make phone calls when you have an opening in your schedule, and you don't feel like it's your job, in part because you went to school to learn the clinical side of hygiene, and in part, you don't feel comfortable with making the call because you feel like you're harassing them. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. I can understand that. I definitely don't want you or the patient feeling like we're doing something that's harassing anyone. I also believe that if we sit down together, we can talk about a right way that serves a patient that we can make a phone call, and we could talk about maybe what a harassment phone call sounds like. I think if we sit down together, we can know the difference. But here's the struggle I have. We have to deliver excellent patient care, and we have to also take care of the company. And when one of those two things isn't working, we can't do this. When you have a patient, I'm asking you to deliver excellent patient care. And that is what you're so good at. When you don't have a patient, I'm wanting you to serve the company, to deliver excellent company care. And the best thing you could do is to make a proper set of phone calls to patients that is serving them and not harassing them. Here's what I've decided. I've decided that we need to all sit down and have some training on this. And then for the next 2 months, we're all going to be making these phone calls. I will even make the phone calls myself when I have an opening in these 2 months. And after we do this for 2 months, we are going to see how many patients we scheduled. And we're going to talk about what worked and didn't work. And that's what I'm asking of you. Now, if any time you feel uncomfortable about this and you feel like you need more help and more training, then I want to provide that to you. Does that make sense?
It does. And Scott, the last question you ask is, can you do that? That's the last, it's a very, that last question is a very powerful question. Can you do that for me for the next 2 months? Getting that yes out of them is super important. And by the way, if they just stonewall and they say, I don't know, The answer to that is I want you to go home and think about it, and let's talk again tomorrow, because I need a yes from you. I need you to be a yes in order for this to work for both of us. I also want to say that that was a pretty crafty thing you did there, Dr. Leune, when you said, I will make some of the calls myself so that I have to experience that. For everybody who's listening, that's gold right there. Putting yourself down in the trenches, even though it's probably not the best use of your time right now, being willing to jump in there and do it is really what you have to express to them. But believe it or not, in most cases, they'll be like, no, once they get it, they'll be like, that's ridiculous. You're not making calls. I'm making the calls. They'll just take over when they're comfortable with it.
And so we document it now in their file that we had the conversation. Yep. We document that they still didn't feel like they could do it. And that now we're going to meet with them the next day. And we're going to ask them, you know, you've had some time to think about this. So now I'm asking you, can you do this for us for the next 2 months as we do it together?
It's the best possible way to bring somebody on board. If you can't get on board with that, there's no changing them.
Okay, so let's say now I'm gonna make this a curveball a bit. Let's say they say yes, I can do it, but they're not doing it, and they're complaining to other people about it as well. They said yes to our face, but then every time they need to do it, they're not doing it. Then what do I do?
You know, once someone gets to that place where they're not going to do it and they're saying yes to you, but they're still resistant and they're just undermining you in the background, I'm of a mind that I have to get the person out of there. That is a signal to me that once we've had some meaningful conversation and we've listened and we've empathized and we've gone through everything, once a person says yes to me, but they are a solid no and they begin to undermine me, I can't, as a leader, I can't have them in there because it's a bad apple and it's infecting the entire team at that point in ways that, believe me, you don't even know, that will never be expressed to you, and you will not figure out until you get that person out of your practice and out of the way. And then it'll begin to come to light, you know, other issues that they're causing in there. But the yes and not doing what you've asked, that's why we have the either daily or the Friday or the every 2 week meeting, because now we're looking at data. Now we're looking at, you know, answering direct questions. How many calls did you make? What did it result in? Are we experiencing success here? So they may be a yes and a no in the background, but they can't hide out. We don't just let them pretend to do it. We measure whether they're doing it or not. And that kind of, you know, quickly gets them in a position where they got to do, you know, they got to either do what they say they're going to do, or they realize that they're going to get in trouble.
So I gave a lecture to a huge group of the largest DSOs in the country. Yeah. And the topic went on to, you know, how to have a great office manager. Mm-hmm. And I kind of made this statement to the room: we need to stop thinking them as office managers and start thinking more that they are accountability managers, that they are not going to be as involved in the processing of patients, but they're more involved in the auditing and bringing accountability to the processes. And you know, when I think about someone that might be blocking, it is the accountability manager in this example, the office manager, that may be talking to them and asking them, how many phone calls we make, or looking at their call log, or, you know, bringing the measurement of it, bringing the measurement to us. And what I love that you said is get them to say yes, they will try it. Because when they don't, they've lied to us. Yep. When they don't, they've now lied. And another thing I think about is if we are dealing with someone that is truly a bad apple that will not change, that is infecting the rest of the organization, so often, even the pain of being shorthanded, if they're no longer with us, we have less pain than the pain of keeping them. We are more productive with less people. So, I mean, you can have a great person. Sorry, I froze there. You could have a great person do the job of 10 people sometimes, but you could have an infectious person bring all the great people down many times. So while we don't want to just go be, you know, firing people left and right if they don't implement something, it is important to understand, you know, when are we going to kind of cross that line? And correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard you say is we've got to listen first. We have to empathize. We have to make sure they've been heard and validated and that we understand them, because they might be right. We need to make sure we truly understand where they're coming from. Then we need to, in a sensitive way with communication, we need to make sure they understand why we're doing it and that we are going to do it and that they've agreed and that we will measure and support them after that. And if they are still not doing it after that, they're probably a bad apple, because that's a lot of effort to go into to help them go through the phases of change.
And they're going to go, this is going to take weeks, if not a few months, because they'll get better in one place and then they'll be pushed back in another area, and you'll just kind of be working through it with them. But that's exactly it. Asking them, can they do it? Will they do it? I think is key, because it really puts them in a space. And I understand with the DSOs too, we have a lot of practices out there with multi-practices. And really the office manager has to take that role of accountability, and it's just so important. And it's not easy holding people accountable and seeing patients and working 12 hours a day and thinking about your practice, and then meeting with somebody and cajoling them along and trying to get them on board. But believe it or not, it's what you signed up for out there. It's what leadership is all about. You have to find space for it.
Well, to me, what I recommend is blocking off the first 30 minutes of every morning for a dentist to be a CEO. We call that CEO time, where they're running their audits, they're looking at their measurements, they're correcting little issues they find the first 30 minutes of the day. So they have time every day to address something. And implementing change, theoretically, you could put it on paper, and if everyone does everything you said they're supposed to do, that it could be very easy.
Great, yeah.
The reality is implementing change is micromanagement of the implementation. For the first month, it's every day. It's continuous audits of that thing. It's reminding everyone in every morning huddle for the first month that we're doing this new way of answering the phone, for example. It's walking down the hallway and listening to the calls and immediately correcting when we've fallen back to the old way. It truly is hand-holding. It has to be. And those blockers will be very evident if we are micromanaging change. We will see it immediately.
Yeah, I hate micromanaging, but this is the place where it belongs. You got to micromanage first so that you can give it up. Some people, if you've got a blocker, you're going to have to micromanage the heck out of them in order to put them in the corner to get them to do the thing that they said that they're going to do. That is how that works. But yeah, as you're implementing change, it is. I think it's just, you're going to find one or two people who are going to push back, and it's going to take a bit.
You haven't said, so the options with a blocker are unblock them with communication strategy, or have them prove that they're wrong for the practice. But what we haven't said is the third option, which I don't want anyone to take, is the third option would be let them control it and not implement the new thing. But unfortunately, that's so often the thing so many people just revert to, is that they just accept the lack of implementation. They'll never become tomorrow's practice because the person today forces you to stay with today's practice. So, I really feel like the least painful thing we can do with someone that truly cannot be unblocked is to let them go, so that we could have tomorrow's practice and get rid of any sort of this infectious kind of culture that they might have created.
It's the hardest lesson that I ever had to learn, Scott. I literally started this company in a guest house. We don't need to visualize this, but I'm literally sitting in my underwear, making phone calls, answering HR stuff, and I'm just building a company. And it just took a long time for me to understand. Once I got a team on board and started building this company, it takes a lot out of you to have someone who you valued at one point, who's been a great employee, who you're now starting to evolve at, where now you're evolving as an owner and as a practice, and you have different needs, and they can't get on board. It's not your fault. It's not their fault. But the fact is, when I have someone like that, the last thing I want to do is let them go, because I do have sincere appreciation for them and for everything that they're asking for. But as I evolve as a leader, and as you guys are listening out there, as you evolve, your needs, the needs of your patients, the needs of your practice are going to change. And this is, one of the toughest spots to be in, where you have to let somebody.
There's also the question about, we're having this conversation with them privately.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes these blockers are using a public space to block, to kind of not just voice a concern, but literally put on the pads and block against us in this meeting. And all eyes are on us on, how are we going to handle this and whose side might someone be on?
Right.
Are we doing the same strategy of listening and empathy and so forth? Are we doing that same strategy in the public setting?
I think it just depends on where you're at in your relationship with this employee and with the other employees, and how many conversations you've been having with them. But frankly, I will just get myself through that meeting. I will emphatically state what our goals are and we're in the direction that I think we're going in. And then I will pull that person in and I will have a conversation with them. And at this point, I'm going to have a different conversation with this. I'm not a buy-in person at that point. I'm sitting them down and I'm saying, look, you're a de facto leader here. People listen to you. They care about what you have to say. And there's a reason for that. It's that you're good at your job. But let me make one thing clear. If you have concerns, you and I are meeting individually every other day, if not once a week. That's the time for you to express what you just expressed. But what you just did out there in front of everybody is not okay. And I can't make you stop doing that. I can't make you maybe talk in the background about how this isn't a good program or how you don't like it. But what I can do is I can make a different choice about who I work with. And I will not work with someone who undermines me, especially in front of the rest of the team. I need you to get on board. And if you don't like it, I totally get it, but I'm asking you to just please help me out here, play along, and help me get to the other side. Do I make myself clear? I mean, at some point, you can't let somebody just step up and be the leader. You're the leader. You don't need to lead by force. It's best to lead by reason, but you definitely can't let someone who's kind of infecting everything just keep going.
Okay, so let's say I'm the practice owner and someone says something disrespectful to me, my leadership in the practice in a meeting, and everyone's quiet looking. In
I've had it.
In that situation, I might kind of, with as much grace as I can, not react emotionally with an attack back. But maybe I say, Sarah, I think I understand what you just said to me. I'm going to need to meet with you in private right when we're done with this meeting. And I'm going to address it at that point. Let's table this for a second. Let me just get through the rest of the meeting with everybody. Let you and I meet afterwards. Yeah. And because I never would say, I need to meet with you right after this meeting, it's going to be pretty obvious to the rest of the team that that wasn't a good moment, but it's also going to be obvious that I didn't throw her under the bus in front of them. And that I reacted in a respectful way to pull it into a private room. Does that sound right to you? It is, and you actually take a really high road when you do that. You're leading by example when you do that. You're showing a level of emotional maturity and leadership that people want. People want to be led well. They want a good leader who's decisive. That, believe it or not, they want someone who will fire a fellow employee who is not doing a good job. They want those people out of there. So when you have good and high performers on your team, being able to model that for them, when they know that you're upset, they know that what was just said wasn't appropriate, but you kept your cool, it's huge. And you really need to have that conversation in private, not in front of everybody else. So I know that a lot of people are not comfortable with this, right? A lot of people are almost, sometimes people want an office manager just so the office manager could do this, right? So the office manager could be the one having these kinds of conversations. What I realized is that because we were a subscriber to your company, so just for a tiny little monthly fee, we could call your executives at any moment to ask them how to handle things. What I realized is that not just me as the CEO, not only did I feel supported and a little more confident with what to say, but I found that my leadership was using that, calling sometimes without me even knowing, and they felt really confident about how to handle situations the right way instead of their way. the right way instead of their emotional way. And
Right.
so I think it's important to know that like this is a skill we continuously build as leaders, is how to deal with blocking, how to deal with conflict. And it's easier. We condense time a bit in our growth when we have experts that we just say, how do I deal with this? This just
How do I
happened.
deal with it? Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
now we're not going to two horrible things. We're not going to either react emotionally and say the wrong thing. That's bad. Or another thing that's bad is we're not going to stick our head in the sand and just act like it didn't happen. Right?
Yeah.
We're going to have an expert to lean on. So for those of y'all that are struggling with this and you've never had kind of HR executives at your disposal, I don't mean for this to sound like a commercial for your company, Paul, but it's just fact. It's a very important thing to have, especially in the climate we're in, where it seems like we're just having more friction with employees and they feel like they can just come and go and threaten us sometimes with leaving. And, you know, we really just need to elevate our ability to deal with this conflict right now. And I think one great way of doing that is being able to call up your executives and be taught, you know, moment by moment what to do. Awesome. All right. I know you've got a few more slides left here, and I know that we're wrapping it up on time, so I'm going to quit interrupting so much.
No. It's okay. Look, I'm going to give a really, really quick example here of what you just talked about. We have a blocker in a practice. The practice is in, I think, Massachusetts. The person calls in with a blocker call. They're upset with this employee, and they've had it with them, and they're ready to get rid of him. By the way, Scott, they're kind of jumping the gun to get rid of this person, but they've had a moment with him in a meeting. It wasn't good in front of other people, and they're kind of like, "How dare you?" And it's kind of that last conversation we had. It was not good what this person did. But because they were on with us and said, this is what's going on, and I think I need to fire this person, we start asking questions. And what we find out is that 3 weeks ago, that this same employee filed a workers' comp complaint against the practice. I don't know if it's a valid complaint or not, but it's about carpal tunnel syndrome. She knew she was in trouble. The owner's thought was she was trying to save her job. She was trying to get in a protected class. And guess what? She is in a protected class now. She does have that workers' compensation claim. And because they called us, we were able to work with them. That employee is not going to get to stay. They are not going to get to keep blocking. It is going to be documented. And we're not going to get in trouble over that workers' comp claim and taking some kind of adverse action against that employee. So that's the value of not just having an HR expert, but they're looking at the compliance issues and beginning to ask you some of these leading questions about what's going on around this circumstance. It feels really powerful to walk away from a phone call with us being told, you're fine. You can do whatever you want to do here. Here's a strategy, try to get them on board, but you're not in any legal danger. That feels good too. And it's a level of integrity when you're in compliance that is really, really powerful. That's what gets me going on folks that do their own policies and stuff. So key takeaways here real quick, and then we'll just jump out at the end. You said it earlier, Scott, don't go around the blocker. Don't just decide I'm just not going to involve them. Just be easier if I just pretend like they're not blocking me. Don't give in to their demands. You got to bring them on board. Sticking your head in the sand is not the way to go. As we said before, when you set measurable goals and you review the progress, there's no place for anybody to hide, you nor they. We talked about compliance issues, and obviously, if you ever want to get anything done, you got to overcome the blocker and get them out of the way.
Excellent.
So I got a moment for questions if anybody has questions, or if you have questions.
There was one question posted on the chat. It said, do you help practices in Canada?
No, we do not work with practices in Canada. Thank you for asking that question. You have a different set of laws there, and it's quite a bit different than at-will employment here in the States.
Would you have changed your strategy of empathizing, listening, empathizing, redirecting, requiring, and measuring for Canadian practice?
We would not. I think that everything I've given you in this kind of strategic approach to overcoming a blocker is 100% applicable in Canada. Yeah. Very, very, very much so. This is human stuff we're doing. Nothing changes because we go across the northern or the southern border. All of us humans still operate the same way.
Yeah, excellent. Another question for my team, is the recording available for this course? Go ahead and just email us, respond to the email you got for this, and we'll see what we can give you out of this. We need to edit some things and make it available to you in an easy way, but we'll see if we can get you a recording of this. But I believe we're going to try to email it out pretty soon, tomorrow or the day after. But if you didn't get something from us within a day or two, reach back out to us. Could you go to your next slide, Paul? If anyone needs to get a hold of Cedar, oh, here we go. Oh, this is awesome, Paul. You've got, wow. But
Well,
I paid more than this. This is awesome. So explain what we're seeing right now.
Okay, so I want everybody to keep in mind, we are an HR support company, and we also do employee handbooks. We can't provide you with all these solutions to problems unless we're sure that you have the right policies in place. And those policies change across all 50 states for the number of employees, for the number of locations you have. There's a lot that goes into creating a good employee handbook. So we create this bundle for everybody. And quite frankly, Scott, I didn't realize we were going to do $1,000. So you're going to be able to, if you get in touch with us, you use this QR code. It's going to give you a Calendly link. If you put in that, if you just enter yourself into the link to talk to us, you'll get $1,000 off our employee handbook when you bundle it with the support program. So as you said, Scott, about $175 a month. You stay updated. You get access to our software, our timekeeping, our PTO tracker, all of the resources that come from us. Plus, you get unlimited access to us as experts. So we help you through these problems. We'll ghostwrite things for you. Remember, we're working directly with you or your manager. So we're growing your talents and your capabilities. We're not doing the work for you. We're doing the work with you. After 48 hours, I drop that to $800 on the discount. And then after that, it'll just go back to the deal where you can get a $700 discount when you put the two together.
Yeah, well, Paul,
And
my kind of response
hopefully,
is, every single practice has to have a compliant handbook for policies. We have to be able to start with that foundation. Then after that, paying just $175 or $200 a month or whatever it is to have full executive level HR support with software platform and everything. That's really low cost. I mean, some practices hire people just because of this thing, whole people. This is a really low cost thing. I appreciate you doing this for our profession. And of course, I appreciate you giving a discount that I personally didn't even get for anyone that needs help with this. If anyone needs to reach out to you, y'all just take a screenshot or something of this slide right now. There's his information. Paul, did we provide you our contact information on the slide or anything to show these people in case they...
You actually did.
Oh, CD. Oh, okay, perfect. So it looks like anyone listening to this, if you don't know about what I do, I give these very intense training seminars on practice management and growth in dentistry. If you'd like to come to any of my events, maybe you've heard of them, but you've never been to one before, they're really, really good. Very intense. You can save some money by putting in that code. It looks like my team is also in the gift giving season here. So that's how you reach out to us. By the way, if anyone wants to reach out to me personally, that is my personal Instagram. So you'll see pictures of my kids. You'll see like me traveling. You'll see me lecturing. You can private message that on Instagram. It is me. So feel free if you'd like to talk to me for whatever reason directly. That's an easy way to get a hold of me. Just connect with me on Instagram. All right, Paul, we did have another question real quick. What if an employee said they don't agree with the policy or procedure and insist to do it their way? So they don't agree that they, want to use this new software to text patients. They're just going to call them like they've always done. Yeah.
So here's the thing. What you've triggered me now. When someone says I don't agree and I'm just going to use the old system, the answer to that is no, you're not. You're going to do it the way that I've asked you to do it. That's the simple answer to that. You still got to get buy-in and bring them on board. But I just want you to know this. As an employer, you're allowed to set policy. And so, look, some of the policies you're just familiar with. They're in your employee handbook. Show up on time. HIPAA policies. Don't break the HIPAA policies. You get all these policies. but you also get to change what is essentially a policy, which says the policy used to say we did it this way using these methods, and I've changed that now, and we're going to do it this other way using these other methods. They can't not agree with that. They can't. I mean, they can say, I don't agree with it, I don't want to do it, but you are the boss, and you get to get people in line to do the things that you want to do that the way you want them to do things. That's what leadership is about.
So maybe, after we've gone through listening and empathizing and so forth, and they're still just saying flat out, no, I'm not going to do it. Maybe that's a point where we get to say, I understand where you're coming from. I'm sure you know that I understand you. Here's the thing. There's some things that are negotiable in how we do things, and some things that I just completely trust everyone to do their way. And then there's some things from time to time that are going to be non-negotiable. And that's my job as a leader. That's my job as an owner. At the end of the day, sometimes I have to be the one to say, this is non-negotiable. And I might be wrong. But what I'm actually telling is we will do this for 2 months. And I want you to be the one doing it next to me. I want you to still be in this practice doing it with us. Does that sound okay?
It's a great conversation to have. And I just want to point something out, Scott. It's easy for you and I sitting here, but you remember being in your practice and someone resisting you and in your business, and it can be very, very triggering. It's not easy to get to these easier conversations where you're cajoling and trying to get people to do the buy-in, but you can constantly circle back and listen and empathize and bring them back into you. Here's the other thing. I hate letting someone go under these kinds of circumstances, under any kind of circumstance. But when I know that I put my best forth, my best foot forward, when I put my best effort in, when I've been clear and communicative, and I can see that the program's working, I lose a little less sleep if I have to get someone out of the way and let them go.
Yeah,
I guess that's my.
Yeah, it hurts kind of when you know you haven't done everything you should have done. You weren't as clear, but when you've done all this work to serve them, to help them through this change, and they're just flat out saying no, it's a little easier to kind of pull the trigger sometimes. Well, one strategy I like for myself is whenever I get triggered or elevated, sometimes I need space. I want to kind of calm a little bit and think so that I can come back to the conversation in a way that hasn't been elevated. And so if I detect that happening, even with my wife, if I detect that happening with my wife, sometimes on purpose, I say, let's pause this conversation. Let me think about what you've said. And let's come back to this later today. And that
it's a very
moment
good strategy.
Calm down.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do it all the time. I mean, it is good to have a step down strategy where you can back away from a confrontation and figure out the best way to have a good constructive conversation with somebody. Hopefully we've given you everybody everything they need. Just a reminder, I will send everybody our guide that has all the personas and some of the scripts and stuff in it that'll be, hopefully you'll find very helpful.
All right. Well, everyone, I hope this was a valuable webinar. We do these webinars on my end, once a week or two. They're all different topics, and we try to make them very valuable, just content. And I know this is kind of a tough topic for a lot of people. So, in this short little hour in the evening here, I hope that you were able to get some value from this. Paul, I thank you so much for doing this for us. You run a big company, very successful, and you taking the time to do this on an evening that's convenient for everyone is wonderful. We will get a copy out to everyone, and Paul's available. I'm available. If anyone needs any other help after this, and I just can't recommend Paul's services enough. It's just night and day how safe and how supported we feel in dealing with these conflicts when we've got the executives on our side coaching us what to do. All right. Are there any last words you want to say before we end this session, Paul?
It should be fun to be a leader, and if you've been avoiding conflict and you've kind of been letting people not get with the program, it might feel a little uncomfortable in the beginning, but trust me, a few weeks, a few months from now, when you start to have success and your team starts to have the success with you, you're going to be so happy that you started to kind of develop this muscle where you hold people accountable and you make progress along with everybody else on your team.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you, Paul. And thank you everyone for logging in. I hope we can see you at our next webinar event. Thanks so much, Paul.
Thank you, Scott.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.